everything you wish for.
Right. Everybody's coming in. I'm going to get started here in a few minutes. We're still letting some people in. Check the chat for those 3 actions you can take today. Okay, I think I'm going to get started. We have 15 participants logged in so far. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to MESA Talks, the second one of the 2022-2023 school year. We are joined tonight by our speakers, Nick Poindexter, Ana Lozano, and Sasheen Turner. As people join, our Oregon MESA mods can still let people in. I think we had 24 people registered to attend, so that's a really awesome turnout. Really happy to have you all here. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. MESA Talks, the importance of paid work, struggling to thrive in the world of unpaid internships. Today is April 27th. And this session is going on from 6 p.m. to about 7:15 p.m. We're going to get started, and I would like to welcome you all, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Valentina, and I am the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator here at Oregon MESA. I will be introducing the event tonight and facilitating the Q&A at the end, but the bulk of the event will be our lovely guest speakers from Emerging Leaders. So before I begin, please note that the session is being recorded. And if you have technical issues during the event and you're unable to chat with us, remember that the recording of this session will be uploaded to our Oregon MESA YouTube channel, and you can access that talk there after tonight. We'll probably get it uploaded sometime on Monday. Our moderator will be keeping track of the questions you ask and make sure that we answer them. I would like to start by introducing MESA Talks and what we do here at Oregon MESA. All right, so what is MESA? MESA is an equity program first and a STEM program second. And I would like to welcome you if this is the first MESA event that you have joined. MESA stands for Math, Engineering, Science, Achievement. And we've been working towards advancing equity in STEM since 1985. Our program is based in more than 36 schools throughout the state of Oregon. And our students use human-centered design, which is an empathy-based approach to solving problems. Students pick a client, interview them, and come up with an invention to solve a problem in their everyday life. This year's theme is Designing for Environmental Justice, and our students have been tasked with addressing a need that aligns with this theme and developing an invention for a member in their community. This is also what our first MESA Talks topic was about back in November, and you can also access that recording on our YouTube channel. So MESA Talks is a series that we started back in 2019. And during these events, we gather experts to discuss equity in reference to a STEM-related topic. While today we are focusing on the importance of paid internships, you can look back at our YouTube channel to see the conversations that we've had in the past that range from discussing broken and inequitable systems, to talking about food access, to talking about issues that women face in STEM. So Oregon MESA's mission is to provide our students that are underrepresented in the fields of mathematics, engineering, science, and technology with the skills, knowledge, and opportunities to develop their talents, explore technology-based careers, enter college, and compete successfully in the workforce. And in order to compete successfully in the workforce, the narrative has long been that you must have experience in order to get a job. But what if you don't have experience? What if you haven't had a job, so therefore you can't get a job? The way that a lot of us have been able to be taken more seriously or make our resumes more robust is by doing internships. And within those internships, there is a lot of unpaid ones. And there are internships that may seem paid, but they really aren't. They may provide a stipend or housing, but maybe you don't get that stipend until the end of a 3-month-long commitment. Maybe you get housed in a dorm during your internship, but you don't get food or an allotment for groceries. So here at MESA, we focus on calling out inequities. That's what these MESA Talks are for. Unpaid work is not equitable. It shouldn't exist, and it is in place as a way to gatekeep folks from opportunities that are only accessible to those with privilege. We are here to call that out. Unpaid work is unacceptable. It shouldn't exist, and that's why we're here gathered tonight to talk about. So we are so excited to be joined by folks from the Emerging Leaders program. Later on, we will hear directly from Lozano and Sasheen Turner about their own experiences. And to start us off, and to tell you what ELI is all about, and also to talk about his own career journey, is none other than Nick Poindexter, the Senior Director of the Empowering Leaders Division at the nonprofit organization, The Contingent, where he leads the Emerging Leaders and SINE initiatives. Thank you, Nick, for being here tonight, and take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Valentina. Appreciate Oregon MESA. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm grateful to connect and just be in this space with you. I'll start out by sharing a little bit about who I am, so you're not like, who is this random person talking to me right now, right? So I was born and raised in Portland, so I have a passion and fire for the city. I'm Portland through and through. I attended Portland public schools from elementary school to high school. And graduated from Benson High School. So I'm a Techman, but I think they may be renaming. I know the mascot might be a little different, right? So that might change, but I grew up over by Peninsula Park, if anybody knows where that is. And so I say those things to help to paint a picture of like where I'm from and what I'm all about. And also I come from a low-income family. And with that comes with the challenge of trying to navigate towards opportunities. And so for me, something that was special was I knew I was going to college at an early age, really early. And it wasn't because I was just arrogant and okay, I got this, I know I'm going to go to college. It wasn't because of that. It really was because folks spoke into my life at an early age and just told me like, you can go to college, you have what it takes, you can do this. And I heard it so much that I started to believe it. Like I just believed it despite my circumstances, despite the fact that I didn't have any funds, no resources. There was no pot of money saved up to go to college. I had none of that. And thankfully, I was able to get scholarships and grants to go to college. And that was with the support of folks that were able to walk with me because as folks may know about, like FAFSA is something you apply for, which is very like, what is this thing, when you get to college. And so I had a lot of support. I was also a first generation college graduate. So my parents didn't go to college. So navigating that, there's a lot of just new experiences happening and new paths that I was sort of, moving towards. So I was able to get my bachelor's from PSU, a state local, and then also get my master's from Warner Pacific. And I say some of those pieces because there may be parallels with folks listening in terms of your story, right? Coming from a low-income family or maybe feeling like you don't have a lot of options. But for me, I always want my story to show people that I'm no better than anyone else. Like in my story, the things that my life and my story helped to shape me, but also want folks to see that they're capable and they can accomplish great things. I currently work for a nonprofit where I get to give back to the community that I'm from, which is beautiful. Prior to this, I worked in higher education, helping to connect primarily underrepresented students to college. So really, being in the city, being from Portland, being able to give back to the city is just something that's really important for me. And I want to start out sharing a little bit about my story, so you just paints a picture of like who I am and what I'm all about. I'll also then transition to talking about a little bit about like unpaid experience, my work, et cetera, on the next slide. But just wanted to highlight a little bit about me, so you're like, who's this random person talking to me? So that's a little bit about me and who I am. On the next slide, I'll share a little bit about, sorry, I went too far. So let's talk a little bit, right? And so I have, had unpaid experience. And when I was in college, I actually had 2 unpaid internships. And one of them led to a job, right? So that was a great thing. But I had a great experience and learned a lot, but financially it was tough. I, talked about coming from a low-income family, so not having those resources. And oftentimes, in marginalized communities, especially, there's this, need to take care of your family. So even when I knew when I was working with students, when I was working in higher education, I had a lot of students that had to work in high school to help take care of their family. Like that was just something that they had to do, which makes it very challenging if you get into a situation where you have to do unpaid work. And so during that time, I had to work, for me, I had to work part-time at Walgreens. So I worked at Walgreens for many years throughout college, and then worked part-time in internships. So I did have some paid internships, but 2 of those internships that I had were unpaid. And I was going to school full-time. So imagine like part-time working at Walgreens, part-time working at internship, and then full-time college student. It was really tough. And I was balancing a lot, and trying to manage all of those things. I was also involved, on campus. So that was like another layer of things that took place. And so ideally, if they were both paid, I could have just worked the internships and went to school, right? So it wouldn't be as much pressure as like, okay, I have to balance all these things. I have to make sure that I, just making sure that it just would have taken away some of the responsibilities that made it challenging for me. Coming from a low-income family, it was impossible for me to do unpaid work without working. Like I couldn't do an internship that was unpaid without working. It was just something that was required for me, and it's required for many folks from marginalized communities, because you need resources to survive, right? And you don't have that sort of. I talked about for even me, like I didn't have a pot of money where I could be like, okay, we have some reserves. There wasn't those reserves didn't exist, so I had to work part-time, and I gained a lot of skills and experience, right? Like grit and just go getter and trying to make things happen and taking initiative. But it was very challenging. So there's a lot of weight on my shoulders in doing that, which could have, if it was a paid opportunity, it would have worked out better, right? And so that's a little bit about like the unpaid experience for me and how it was challenging, and I learned a lot from it, and I think I'm stronger because of it. But I wish that I didn't have that situation. I'll talk a little bit about the work that I do and the opportunity that I get to be able to like provide paid internships, which I'm really excited for and thankful to be able to do. And also want to name that there's also, as you think about unpaid experience, you can also gain experience through volunteering, which is very different than like an unpaid like work situation. Volunteering, I volunteered at different places where I've gained valuable skills doing that, whether it be other nonprofits or different causes in the community. So that's also another way that usually isn't like a 20 hours a week or more. It's usually like one-off projects or things that you're supporting with. So, sometimes there's other opportunities to gain experience one-off as well. And just wanted to name that piece, that there are some situations where you might be volunteering where you want to just make sure you're being cautious that it's not leading into a place where you're actually doing significant amount of work, but you may be volunteering your time to support different causes. I want to transition that to talking some the work that I do. I'm honored to be able to work at the Contingent. I work, as mentioned, I'm senior director of the Empowering Leaders Division, where I oversee 2 initiatives: Emerging Leaders, which is focused on current college students and recently graduated students of color, helping connect them with like mentoring, but also helping connect them. A really large program is called ELI, Emerging Leaders Internship Program, where we connect current college students, recently graduated students with jobs. And so this is something I'm really grateful for. And I'm looking forward to also introducing or hearing you hear the stories and just experiences of a couple of our amazing ELI alumni, in terms of really, for us, is really intentional. Even we think really intentionally about feedback and hearing from folks to make sure that their experience is created, is done in a way where they really feel supported. Even thinking about feedback, one of the things we added actually during the experiences, we actually added like a transportation allowance, because we heard from students saying that there was, challenges with like commuting and parking, and things like that. So we, for us, we partner with companies, and companies are, agreeing to pay a certain amount of hours. So these are full-time jobs. They're 10 to 12 weeks over the summer. They are above minimum wage. And so we constantly also trying to make sure that the minimum amounts are above minimum wage for the students as well. So that's something I'm privileged to be able to do. I'm also have the opportunity to lead SINE, which is Survival is Not Enough. And that is really for college graduates. So that's even thinking about life after college and what does it look like to pay off student loans? What does it look like to build wealth and your career trajectory, and thinking about giving back when you get to a place where you're able to do that. And so for my work now, I'm able to lean in and make sure that we don't, folks have to pay to be able to partner with us, and we have some minimum requirements. And so I'm able to help, along with the amazing team that I work with, help amazingly talented folks get internships, paid internships at amazing companies. Last year, we placed over 160 interns at over 100 companies. And so it's just amazing, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, really helping them get connected, which leads to access and opportunities in spaces and places where their voice is able to shine. And so I want to transition to talking about, and then I'm going to wrap up this and then transition to be able to pass it off to our next speaker, really around your story, your experience, and your value. I wanted to note, so I talked about a little bit about unpaid experience. I talked about my work, and I want to speak to folks on this call that may be sort of just looking ahead to what's next for them. So the Oregon MESA folks that are like students, or whatever level you're at, or if you've been a past part of the program, there's power in your story, in your voice, the successes, the challenges. There's power in that, and what you represent, and you're the narrator of your own story, which is a beautiful thing, because you get to tell the amazing story that you've experienced. And that means as much as you want or as little as you want, right? So you own your story, and you're able to speak your truth, and you're able to share what you want. You're going to gain experience throughout your life. And that's the amazing thing. It's like, you might not be at a space where you're like, okay, I don't feel like I have a lot of experience, but over time, it's literally you're picking up all this experience, and then you get to a place where you're like, oh my goodness, I have all of this experience. And even things that you might not think about being experienced is actually experience, like life experience, right? The challenges you've had to overcome, the just how maybe you're involved in extracurricular activities. So you're gaining experience, and it might not be like a work experience, but everything that you're doing is helping to build the unique talents and gifts and abilities that you have. Everything about your story and your experience is going to shape your value. So everything. And I think the really beautiful thing is you're unique, and you have unique gifts and talents and abilities. And so that's the one special thing about each of us when we think about just doing work and leaning in is, and I think the tough thing is sometimes there's this comparison trap where we think like we're comparing ourselves to other people. But the beautiful thing is every single person on this call, every single person listening, there's only one of you. And so you're able to shine in a way that no one else can, and able to show up in a space in a way that no one else can. And so that's a beautiful thing. I want to name that. And also knowing your worth and knowing your value. And sometimes that's over time you start to figure that out, but also lean into your community, lean into folks that are able to help shape, like, okay, let me understand more about what my value is and what that looks like. But I want you to know, even outside of what you might get paid, like you're valuable even before that, like your value. So I just wanted to name that you are valuable, and you have so much worth, and that also, your story, your experience leads to your value and what you represent. And lastly, be encouraged. And with that is really thinking about you matter, your story matters, you're good enough. Lean into community and know that you're not alone. And also, imposter syndrome is real. And so what imposter syndrome, that idea of feeling like you don't belong in the spaces that you're in, even though you earned it. And I want to say that you do belong. You're here for a reason. You're there for a reason, wherever that space is. And really want you to be encouraged as you navigate forward, and knowing your worth, knowing your story, and knowing your experience means a lot. So next, I'm going to pass it off to someone that is amazing, and that I've been privileged to be able to connect with and work with through the work that I do at the Contingent and Emerging Leaders. I'm going to pass it over to Ana Lozano, and I'm looking forward to them sharing a little bit more about them. And so I'll let you take it away, Ana.
Awesome, thank you. So, hi everyone. I'm Anna. I use they, she pronouns. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about myself. I recently graduated Portland State University with my bachelor's in human resources management in 2022. I'm a people engagement coordinator at Trimble, which is really just a fancy way of saying I'm an HR coordinator. But I'm a listening strategist focused on data-based employee trends. So I use surveys to improve employee belonging, representation, and career growth. So that's just a little bit about what I currently do. And like Nick has mentioned, I'm an Emerging Leaders alum from 2021. And I was fortunate enough to have heard about Emerging Leaders way before I even thought about applying to internships. And I heard the experience of someone who was in the program. And all that was really running through my mind was that there was no way I was capable of going through the application and interview process and actually getting an internship. So there was definitely a lack of confidence there, which I feel like a lot of students have as they navigate through the internship world. And at the time when I was at Portland State University as a junior, I was really struggling to connect with my white peers, and I was starting to feel the imposter syndrome creep in. But luckily, I had a really great advisor that just told me to just go for it, take the leap, even though I felt like I was nowhere near prepared to start the ELI application. I was working at Macy's as a sales associate at the time. I felt like I really had no real professional experience. I didn't even know how to properly write an email or answer interview questions or write a cover letter. So I was kind of really lost. So taking that leap and applying to Emerging Leaders was a huge step for me, but something I truly don't regret. Um, and I always say I'm down to hype up Emerging Leaders because they really helped me out a lot in building my confidence. And as I was applying to internships and wanting actual paid work rather than unpaid, I found that it's hard navigating the professional world as someone who is neurodivergent and also first generation college student. Before Eli, I had no guidance, no mentor. I really was just Googling everything, looking up how to write a proper email. And in terms of barriers, I found myself really struggling to be my authentic self in interviews. As someone who's neurodivergent, often being put on the spot can make it challenging for me to communicate my thoughts correctly. So I would say that was a really huge barrier for me that really discouraged me from applying to more internships. I felt that by continuing my professional journey, I'd be kind of just assimilating and not honoring my identity. But I learned that our identity is a strength, and we bring a lot to the table as people of color, marginalized people who are in marginalized communities. So if you're thinking about applying to internships, I definitely recommend it, even if you have literally no idea what you're doing, or if you don't feel confident, or maybe you have applied and been denied. I still urge you to continue growing and trying. And using resources and guidance from your advisors and even ELI can be huge help. Um, it was for me since I ended up actually getting 3 different internship offers. So really great. Um, yeah. And every internship experience and journey is completely different, but my advice to those wanting an internship is the same for everyone. So going on to the next slide, hopefully this works. No, there you go. It worked. So my advice to you guys sounds super corny when just looking at this slide with no context, but I swear I live by it. As you're graduating high school or in college or whatever, I really encourage you guys to think about what you're passionate about. For me, I've always been passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. And so when I was interviewing for HR internships, I'd look for companies who also aligned with my passion. And then be someone you admire in your profession, in the profession that you're interested in. This is where I say representation really matters because I really had no one I looked up to. I had no professor or mentors of color until I had met a professor who I really admired. So I channeled her energy whenever I was networking or during interviews, which really helped with the confidence. And then my third piece of advice is definitely be okay with making mistakes. I think us people of color really struggle with being perfectionists. I know that making a mistake often feels like we'll be seen as incapable or unintelligent, but I think part of the intern experience um, is making mistakes and learning from them. And it doesn't dictate intelligence or capability. I think what you learned from the mistake is really what's important. So no one really is expecting someone with like possibly no previous experience to be perfect. So be okay with the idea of failure. And then my last piece of advice really goes back to what this whole session is about, not accepting unpaid work. Students of color make up such a small percentage of interns, yet make up a huge percentage of students in unpaid internships, which is really terrible to hear. So I encourage you to seek out internships in companies that really value your time. So be selective. And so coming from someone that started off not knowing a single thing about how internships worked, I really do always like to remind students that it's okay to fail. The important thing is to pick yourself up and do better the next time, which sounds really silly to say, but it's actually really true. And I hope this resonates with some of you and brings you guys some hope. Like I said, every internship journey is different. The important thing is learning and growing.
Thank you, Anna. Like, that was amazing. I really resonate with a lot that you said, and also Nick too. I actually pushed them into my notes, so hopefully that I'm able to like structure this, but also match what y'all have been saying. I'm Sasheen. I'm an account executive at AKQA. It's one of my dream agencies. I did not know that prior to working here, but I knew that I really wanted to work in a bigger space and I wanted to compete in a big arena. So if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to start off with sharing a little bit about me. We can start it off from high school. I went to Park Rose. I also grew up low income. I grew up on Sandy Boulevard right next to that train. Very, very loud. And a lot of my growing up, to follow up on what Nick was saying, I definitely saw myself going to college because that was something that was instilled in me. That was something that people would always tell me that I could do and that I shouldn't exclude that idea, and that just working straight out of high school, it really wouldn't get me to where I wanted to go. And folks knew where I wanted to go because I would always express my dreams or like the different goals that I had. So they always encouraged me to go to school, and I did. And that is actually where I found Emerging Leaders. And then I actually had my internship at Thesis Agency, which is really ironic because the co-founder of Thesis is also the co-founder of Emerging Leaders. And so like there's a big connection there, and I feel like deeply rooted in this program. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be in this space. These panel discussions really helped me throughout college. And so to see it come full circle is amazing. I'm also a first gen, and going through school, I actually did an unpaid internship, but it was called credits, and you actually had to pay in order to do that. So I'm in advertising, and there's a student-led advertising agency at the School of Business at PSU, Portland State. That's also, I'm an alumna from there. So what's up, Anna? Here we are. And so, yeah, so I had my first experience with an unpaid internship. They were considered credits, and I had to pay in order to be a part of that. But I felt that there was some value in there. I definitely like overworked myself, and I felt that it wasn't okay to fail a lot. And while I would have loved to get paid for that work, I did not. And it left me feeling, you know, like some sort of like resentment, but also I felt like overworked, or like my value wasn't quantified in dollars, like that I actually had to pay for that. And like that goes to folks like paying for parking or paying for commute time and all of those things. And it can be really draining, and like you can really start to doubt yourself or doubt your value. And when I found out about Emerging Leaders, it was actually an account that we took on at FUR Northwest. And we were doing their marketing for them. And well, actually that was at Thesis, but at FUR, we were doing like the marketing for Atmos, which is how I found out about Emerging Leaders. So I'm just doing a little backtrack. But Atmos, they support minorities at PSU in the School of Business, and they told me about Emerging Leaders and that I should apply. And I realized that it's okay to be picky, and that it's okay to put value on yourself, and also that it's important to look for opportunities when you have everything that you want. And so at that time, like I was living at home, my mom allowed me to come back after like being gone for a couple of years with college. Like I lived in San Diego, I lived in Hawaii, and I came back to Portland, and my mom said, yes, you can live here if you finish your business degree. And that's what I did. So I had the privilege to be picky and put value on myself. And I knew that a paid internship was super important for me to further my growth, not only professionally, but also business-wise. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to work in advertising, in the marketing space, but I've also wanted to use the methods that corporate uses and pull those into me and have that system work for me. So we talk about these systems that are against minorities and things like that. So I took that as a challenge to learn what that system is and figure out how to break it, and maybe not break it, but also have it like work for me, and not only work for me, but also how that like goes out into the world, if that makes sense. And who I'm talking to, things like that really matters. And so I'm working on my business. I have an art business now, and I'm also able to coincide that with the job that I have. I didn't get to this job easy. I worked at Thesis for about 2 years, and I had started off as an intern, and it was definitely paid, my internship, of course, because it's through Emerging Leaders. And there's also Future Academy that AKQA pulls from if you needed like another resource. But they're also like global. I feel like Emerging Leaders is more local, like to the Western area, and Future Academy like pulls from like everywhere. So there's like another one that I wanted to add in. But I think that it's really important to really like focus on yourself and really like pay attention to like what you want to do in this world. And if folks aren't going to put value on that through money, then you don't need to do it. Like, let's like focus on our growth and like where we want to be. And companies that don't pay, I feel they have this like persona that like you have nothing else going on, or like you have no other goals. And a lot of the time, so many people have extracurricular activities outside of work. So you never know like where your money is going to come from, whether you're in an internship or whether you're in a full-time position. And so I think it's important to do that. And that's really like what I have. And what's next? So this is an art gala. So I'm an artist. I'm an abstract painter, and this is an event that I have coming up. A lot of what I do at my job, I'm an account executive. It sounds really fancy, but it's actually like one of the lower roles at the agency. But like everything that I'm doing for clients, I do for myself and for my own business. So I'm filtering all of that back in. And I did the same thing with my internship as well. So this is my event that's coming up. Tickets launch here. At first, it was going to be a free event, and I was going to pay for it. And it's like, no, if I'm working, I need to get paid. So now the event, I'm charging for the event. So it's the little things. Like, it's not always like at your job. It's like whatever you're doing, if you are putting all this effort, all this time and work into it, like put the value on yourself. But yeah, I just wanted to like pop that in there, and just like as an example of like how it can be applied to other things aside from like an internship in your job. So thank you for having me and for being here. I appreciate it.
That was amazing.
Thanks. Yes, and Nick, like you've definitely been like a pillar in my like post Emerging Leaders into SINE. You've definitely been someone that has my back and like always like pulling me into these conversations or ask me if I want to be a part of them. And I just feel like when I left PSU, like graduated, I was going to be alone, and you've just like really have been there for me. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely proud of you both. I just want to know that. I said it in the chat, I'm saying it out loud. Yeah, so definitely proud of you both, and grateful to know you and grateful to see you continue to lead with excellence.
Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing. I'm proud of you both, and I just met you today. So, okay, so it is now time for the Q&A portion of the event, questions and answers. If you have a question for our speakers tonight, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we will ask you to unmute to ask your question. We will answer questions in the order in which they're received. You can also drop your questions in the chat, and we will be sure to answer those as well. I'm going to stop sharing now, and we will turn this into a little community roundtable discussion. This is what MESA Talks is a place for our community to come together and talk about these things. So let's see here. I see a question in the chat, maybe. All right, let's see. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question.
If we have any questions, or I can just like say something while they're coming in, because folks, I can be a slow typer. I have acrylics on right now, so I type slow. But I'd love to bring up something Anna said about being someone that you admired. And there's a book I read, it's called The Compound Effect. It's by Darren Hardy, and he talks about breaking up your goals into a series of steps that ultimately get you to your goal. So like if you want to be a C-suite executive, something like me, like I want to be a C-suite executive, like who are like the C-suite executives that I admire? What are their daily tasks that they do every day? And how can I like implement those into my daily life? It's not necessarily like idolizing the executive. It's more of like understanding what they're doing different in their everyday lives that I can be doing that I don't already do. And so like being someone you admire, I think is so powerful. But it's also like I think it's like a blurred, sometimes can be a blurred line of like idolizing someone versus like being who they are like on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense. But I love that quote, like that's something that I also live by, and it's very, very important to do. But yeah, I would just wanted to underline that. I appreciate you saying that.
All right. I have a question for you all. I prepared some questions. So, okay. So I guess the most pressing one that I've had as I've been hearing y'all talk is what makes you most hopeful about how internships are changing and evolving? What have you seen that has changed since you joined the internship world, how things have changed for the better?
And so, I mean, one of the things I've seen is our program continues, so Emerging Leaders specifically, so the Emerging Leaders Internship program, we're getting a lot of, it's continued to grow, which means that there's more folks joining in and wanting to be a part of making sure to offer paid internships. So I mean, obviously we're one avenue, and there are many others. I know Sasheen mentioned another one, but I've seen our internship has continued to grow, which is, shows that folks are really supportive. There are many organizations that are really supportive of trying to create access, trying to create opportunities, but also trying to make sure that folks are paid for their, skills, abilities, experiences. So that's something, a trend I've seen is a lot more, just our program growing, which just shows that there are a lot of organizations that are wanting to support the work and the effort to have paid internships.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that, I'm part of like kind of the HR world, and I'm noticing that many companies are constantly trying to improve. They're realizing that in order to get top talent into their companies, they need to provide paid work. And as more people of color join the workforce, they're being more selective on what companies they want to work for. So this really just makes me hopeful and excited for the future of internships. And actually, I've been noticing a lot of interviewers have been giving like the questions that they're going to ask to the interviewees before they have the interview, which is really, really great, especially for people who are neurodivergent. We just work way better when we have time to process what we're being asked. And so that also just makes me very hopeful about the future.
Yeah, that's a practice that we have in Oregon MESA. We send the interview questions 24 hours ahead of the interview so that folks have a chance to look through them and then come up with their own questions as well. And to jump off of what you and Nick were saying, I've also seen, and I heard Nick talk about this earlier when he was talking in his portion at the beginning, that a lot of jobs are using experience instead of job experience, just like life experience. And I think that's a change that I've noticed for the better as well. The thing that I think, I don't know if y'all have seen, but that I've noticed is that sometimes the stipends that internships offer have been getting bigger, quote unquote. So instead of like paying $400 for 1 month, now they pay $600, but also inflation, right? So it's really not that big of a bump at all. But yeah, Sasheen, do you have an answer to that first question? What changes have you seen for the better in the world of internships since you entered it?
Yeah, I think programs like these, to be honest, and I feel like these events are more frequent to where we can actually talk about what we're doing post the internship as well, so that people can see the other side of it. I think like when you start off as emerging leader or in emerging leaders, like you're very like soaked into the like curriculum that they have and trying to do a good job, like trying not to make mistakes, but that's okay. And so just to like see the other side, I think it's very important. So I feel like we are the change. I feel like this room is a change for that. And I'm always empowered by these, like whether I'm a part of it or whether I'm attending, that I would say like this is the change for me. So I'm loving it. And I feel like I should add something else. No, that's it.
Okay, we have 2 questions in the chat. The first one is, what has been most surprising to you as you've navigated the world of paid and unpaid internships? What has probably been the biggest surprise?
I feel like folks are invested more when they pay you, because they're like, oh, I'm responsible for this person and they need to do a good job. I feel like in my unpaid internship, a lot of folks like didn't really care, like they didn't show up or like they wouldn't complete the work. And if me, like I try to be an overachiever, and so like you like leave a lot of the work for those people, and that can turn, again, like I mentioned, resentment earlier. I still think the program is great. I still think for Northwest is great. It's just not paid, but they require a lot of work from you for free, essentially. And I'm a person who wants to come in early and leave late. So those kind of opportunities don't work for me anymore. And I like understand that now. So I hope that answers the question.
I'll go. I think what was most surprising before I even entered kind of this internship world, I thought everything was kind of black and white. If I made a mistake, like it was over for me. I was never going to get an internship. They weren't going to forgive me. And that's not really true. You can make a mistake. Like I remember when I submitted this is kind of a funny story. I submitted my resume to Emerging Leaders. And I noticed that there was a spelling mistake on my resume, and I was just freaking out. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna see that. Nobody's gonna offer me an internship. I'm so embarrassed. But like nobody noticed, and it didn't matter. And again, I got like 3 internship offers. Like it's fine. And yeah, I think that's what was the most surprising to me, because I had no idea how that world worked. So I just thought it was kind of black and white. So yeah.
I also think like the unpaid internships, it's like they're wanting you to focus on the relationships that you're building versus the money. And so like if that's where you're at that time, like I would just focus on, yeah, like building those relationships and like really understanding the industry that you're in, but definitely always want to get paid for that.
Nick, do you have anything to add to that question? What has been the most surprising? I guess you see it from a different lens too. What is something that has surprised you from the lens that you have as somebody that works, in not as an intern, but as like the director of a place that offers internships?
Yeah, it's funny. I was trying to like think back to, it's been a little while since my internship time, but actually one of the things, like I actually have something thinking back to when I was in internships. Even I think something that was surprising is there was an internship that I had that was paid, and I was there. Like I had an internship extended for a little while, and they actually offered me a job, but it didn't feel like that was something like I wanted to do or something I was passionate about. And so I made the decision to like not move forward with that and look to other opportunities. And so I think that's even there was, a lot of learning that takes place from like internships and that experience, right? Like the idea of like, even if you have an internship doesn't mean it's going to be like something you really enjoy. It could be. The hope is, and I think the cool thing and the opportunity that you get in terms of getting an internship is you'll go into a space where you like, the hope is that, right, it might be aligned with where you're going. The hope is that you'll enjoy it because like, oh, this is what I really been want to do for so many years or whatever the case may be. But there are times when you go into a space and you're like, actually, this isn't what I actually want to do. And that's okay too, right? So there's that learning and that takes place. So I think the surprising thing is where I got there and I was like, okay, this is, I knew I was going to gain experience, but I didn't know like, okay, like this isn't really what I want to do. And that's okay. So I think there's a surprise in that, but there's also a benefit of growth and learning more about yourself through those internships and job opportunities. So that's, I guess, not specifically to that, but I think that's something that's surprising that I think we don't talk about often is that, even if you go to internship and you go through it and it's like amazing opportunity. I mean, it's a great opportunity in terms of skills. It might not be the best fit in terms of where you see yourself or your passions or your goals. And it's okay to say, you know what, this isn't best for me, and not just move forward just because the opportunity is there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense. That was really good, really insightful. We have so many questions in the chat coming in now. All right, everybody's getting inspired. First question is, I started looking for a job in February, but basically had no response. Can you recommend any local job search sites?
I'm happy I can answer. I like to provide space for others. So I was like pausing. I mean, there are, I think some that come to mind, and Anna, Sasheen, definitely here, interested in learning more about what your thoughts. I know something that we're doing is actually in the process of thinking through, like for us internally, what would it be like to like create a job board, like for us, because we get a lot of companies that reach out to us about opportunities and wanting to share opportunities, and so that's a future state, but more so saying like we're looking in and thinking about what could that look like to provide sort of a mechanism or opportunity to like share out more opportunities with folks. But there are definitely, I know Partners in Diversity has jobs. I know Partners in Diversity has jobs, and I know there's some others that are a little intimidating. Like LinkedIn has jobs, but it's like thousands and thousands of jobs, which I know can be intimidating. And you have Indeed, right, that has jobs, and I know there's others outside of that. I'd also name like the benefit of LinkedIn. I know as you're working, the individual that's looking to find a job is like connecting with people and utilizing your network to like learn more about jobs. And even like if you want to learn more about companies that you admire, right, there might be people in your network or people connected to your network where you can explore and look into jobs. So sometimes it's even like, hey, you know this company that you really want to work for, and you look in to learn more about it, explore about it, because like even on their own websites they have jobs, right? And you might know somebody that's connected, even if it's not a direct connection. I know there was a time a long time ago where I was like, I was working and I got laid off because the economy was crazy, and I was laid off for like 6 months, and I treated that for like a job, and I was like meeting with people, networking, setting up coffee meetings. I was applying to jobs, but I was also so I would say the job sites, can be beneficial, but also getting to connect with people is probably even more beneficial because you're actually able to get in front of people and build those connections in a more authentic way, and they're able to know a little bit more about you. That's what I would encourage. Anna and Sasheen, I'm curious if you have sites that you think about or just tips as somebody is looking for a potential job.
I'll go. I would just suggest looking up career fairs. I know at least here, because I live in Salem, there's Chemeketa Community College, and they often have career fairs that you can join in. And I think those are very beneficial because you're like talking straight at like the recruiters who can then recognize your name if you decide to apply to any of their positions. So I definitely recommend that. And just going to networking events, a lot of recruiters go to them just to seek out possible applicants. So those are basically my two suggestions if you're not really looking through LinkedIn. Yeah, because like Nick mentioned, LinkedIn has a lot of options, and those companies also have a lot of options too, looking at all of those applicants, their names, and not having an actual face. So I really do suggest career fairs.
I love that you're suggesting career fairs and also talking about recruiters, because that is how I blend like LinkedIn. Is like, I only want to talk to recruiters. Like I usually do look at like people who have my job and my job title and like what they put on LinkedIn and like how they're presenting themselves, but also who the recruiters are for that company.
Yeah, that's all really, really good advice. And I think something else that I experienced when I was laid off for a while and working odd jobs myself is not being discouraged. I like would make a list of all the jobs that I applied to, and if I got turned down, I was like, okay, crossing it off, and I'm going to add another one. Like sometimes it really, really does take time, and we've been in a really weird last 3 years. So don't be discouraged if you don't get interviews or don't hear back. Like we've all been going through that in the last 3 years, so your experience is valid. Next question is, do you know any internships centered around film or marketing?
Okay, I rushed back. Emerging Leaders, of course. They have a bunch, and also Future Academy, MAIP. I remember like there was one person who I did the internship with at PSU for Northwest, and he applied to MAIP and he needed like recommendations. And I wrote him one, and he got his job into Ogilvy, which is one of like the powerhouse advertising agencies in the world. So I feel like there's so many opportunities like on these sites, and like they really want folks to come in. So just apply to those. I can put those in the chat as well.
Also, bless you. I didn't realize you got up here went to sneeze. I saw that.
I know, I was trying to like get out what I had to say before embarrassing myself. So here we are. Let's go up.
Nick, Anna, do you have any internships around film or marketing?
I don't, but I think the good thing about asking for a marketing internship is that every company has one. So really, just look at any company that you want to work for in the future and see if they have any openings and do your research there. But yeah, ELI for sure. I always encourage that.
One of the so we have like 6, folks can apply. So we obviously, as I mentioned, we serve current college students, recently graduated students of color, and they can apply from any major, but we have 6 sort of main job groupings. And one of those is marketing communications, which includes like a number of like subcategories like graphic design and PR within there, and other things as well within that sort of marketing communication. So, and it's actually one of the top 2 job groupings like almost every year. So we get most of the top 2. I think tech is the other one, which aligns obviously really well with Oregon MESA. So tech is a very large one, and then marketing communications. So the application, I think somebody asked about it, the application opens up in the fall, so for the following summer. So it is closed for this summer, but it will open up. We usually open up around October, November, folks will apply, and then usually the application stays open through like January. And so definitely encourage you to apply, or folks no matter, I know there might be folks doing this at different ages. So if you are a current college student, recent graduate student of color, I encourage you to look into Emerging Leaders. And if you're maybe, I know there are some other organizations that serve more like high school students that are looking for jobs and things like that. I know Summer Works is another one. So definitely tap into even like community organizations where they might have specific, like the Urban League or other organizations might have connections to summer opportunities or, so wanted to name that. But yeah, in terms of marketing, I know for us, we have that, but I would also encourage, as folks mentioned, even looking in and reaching out to your network. We're trying to see if you know folks that are working in areas you want to work, and even having informational interviews with them where you sit down with them and just talk to them and learn about what they're doing, and learn about maybe opportunities for jobs in their industry.
Thank you, Nick, and Sasheen and Anna. Those are great answers, great shout outs. Next question. So we're currently end of April 27th. The third question is it too late to apply for summer internships now?
It would, I know for our program it is, but there are other companies that are still hiring. I still see, I'm on LinkedIn pretty frequently and I always see like summer internships. So I don't think it's too late. I think it's just a matter of like trying to find where those internships are and looking into those opportunities. And so, like I said, I would definitely encourage like connecting with different like community organizations, because they also usually are aware and usually organizations are even sharing with those organizations about jobs and things like that. So I think it's not too late. Because it's not too late, but I would definitely encourage you to do it soon, because a lot of folks are wanting to like secure interns ahead of summer coming. Obviously we're almost into May, so I would say do it as soon as possible.
All right. Y'all have anything to add, or you agree with Nick? Yeah, you kind of said it all. Okay. Next question is, what helped you all find your passion? Or what were signs in your life that made you want to pursue the path that you are all in now?
You want to go first? You want me to go first? Okay, I can go first. Yeah, I think for me, I actually started out my career working more internally. So like a lot of the work I did, like new business development for like a marketing firm. So I worked really like internally. And I started to realize as I was working the first few years of my career, like my passion for like being in the community and like just how much I love. And for me, I love encouraging people. So like that's where my heart is. And so the first opportunity I was able to really do that for a job was when I worked in higher education. So I was able to be out in the community, even went back to my old high school, which I think is just a beautiful thing to like full circle, like be in your high school, encouraging folks where you walk those halls. And so I think for me, it's really knowing what excites me about life and what excites me. And so some of those things are like wanting to give back to my community. I love encouraging people. I love building partnerships. I love, connecting with young, amazingly talented individuals like that we serve. And so I think it was like really that place of like, what am I passionate about? What do I like to do? And I think life helped me like I'll be in a role like, okay, these are things. And I think when you go to a new role too, you even realize like, these are the things. And so over time, you're like, these are things I like. These are the things I like. And then eventually you get to a place where like, okay, like you start to like find a job that fits. Like for me now, I do all the things I mentioned, right? Like I'm in the community, have the opportunity to encourage people, building partnerships, doing recruitment, doing mentoring work. And so I think part of that is as you're going through life, you're going to start to realize more about yourself and who you are and what makes you happy and what excites you. And you're also going to start to know more about different pathways to get into that. And even as you build your network, et cetera. So I would say life helped me to learn more about my passions and leaning into like what gets me excited about life. And the desire to like give back to my community, encourage people, et cetera. So I think those are some of the pieces that really helped me to lean into be able to do the work that I do now.
For me, I'm just like so inspired by people, and I'm inspired by folks who follow their dreams and like have these big aspirational goals. And when they achieve them, like that's when I find my passion, because I feel like I can do it too. And I don't know if that's my toxic trait. Like if I see someone else doing it, I think I can do it too. Like, but I don't think I should work on that. Like, I think that's part of my personality. I think that's part of my drive. So that's really like what I want to do. Like I'm inspired by people who do multiple things. Like I work at an ad agency. I work for myself. I work not work for emerging leaders, but I feel like this is a part of like representing them and like in a positive light. And so I love it. And like, I want to keep on doing it. And really like, if you love it and it's something that you can like do on a daily basis that you haven't gotten tired of, that's your passion. Like maybe like you feel like you haven't found your passion, but you're doing it every day. Like no one's just like said, hey, like you should follow up with that. Or I don't know, like people around you will also help you find your passion by telling you that you're really good at something, or complimenting you on something. Like even down to like makeup. Like if you're doing your makeup all the time and someone's like, dang, like I love your makeup. You look great every day because like you do your makeup. Maybe your passion is makeup. Like, I don't know. It's listening to compliments and really like internalizing them too, I would say. So that's what I got.
For me, it's kind of hard to answer this question because I've always sort of just known that I've been super passionate about social justice, being a person of color, neurodivergent, like every underrepresented group, I'm probably under it. It's just kind of, it's been part of my identity. Um, and that's kind of why it's kind of hard for me to answer this question. But I will say that knowing that I was passionate about diversity, um, just bringing up people of color, I just kind of used that and as a path to figure out what I wanted to do for work, I guess, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I've been super fortunate, especially going into an entry level job where my my position is helping, like having data and then presenting it to leaders, and letting them know representation, career growth, and belonging for underrepresented groups. And so yeah, I feel like that answer was kind of a little messy. But yeah, I would say that it's just been a passion of mine since I was in middle school, and it's just been ingrained in my identity. And it just felt natural to me to lead towards the HR world and be in the position that I'm in right now.
I totally resonated with your answer. I thought it was a great answer. And I'm so grateful for you all for being so vulnerable and opening up about your career path and kind of what led you to where you are now. And I can't wait to follow your journey and know, where you go from here. I'm just so grateful that you all joined us here tonight. I'm going to call out the chat. If anybody wants to ask another question, now's the chance. We're going to move on to announcements so that we can wrap up before 7:15. But I also wanted to give the space for our speakers. Usually we end MESA Talks with a call to action. And I feel like this whole MESA Talks has been a call to action, and we've shouted out so many great orgs that are doing really good work in this space. But if there's any last thoughts or any advice that you would give to like a current MESA middle school or high school student, that's kind of like how we like to end our MESA Talks. So if you have anything that you'd like to say before we move on to the announcements part of the session, go ahead and unmute.
I said this already, but I'll say it again. Yeah, just knowing like your value, knowing your voice, and knowing like, yeah, I'm somebody that's going to tell you to be encouraged. And my hope after listening to this and connecting with us is that you're a little bit more encouraged at the end of the day, right? Maybe you didn't remember every single thing we said, but the thing that maybe stuck with you is the hope that we want you, and I want you to know just how much we value you, right? That's why I actually, here because we value you. Everyone listening, especially like middle school students, high school students, even if you don't know what you want to do, or that's okay. Every day is an opportunity to learn more about yourself and what you want to do, and just be encouraged as you journey ahead and explore more about your passions, about yourself, and about your future. So yeah, I would say just be encouraged, and just grateful to share with you today, and to be alongside Anna and Sasheen, who I'm proud of, and I'm going to keep saying that, keep encouraging them, because they're amazingly talented, and I'm excited for what they've done and what they're going to do.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I will say one quick piece of
Yes,
advice.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think definitely for just high schoolers, college students, I definitely think gaining that confidence is so important. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying, like, just walk into a room like a white cis male, because they have too much confidence, and that's what we need. We need at least an ounce of that. And so yeah, I just definitely think that's something that's my advice.
Thank you, Anna.
I'd love to, can I share a story real quick?
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
I'll make this really quick. So the manager I have now, he's amazing, love him, but he is like a cis white male, but he's also like a person of color because he's Asian. And I didn't know that, but he can very well pass for white. His name is also Nick. We were at the airport in Austin, and he just like walked through like priority like TSA area. And they were like, do you have it? He's like, absolutely. And just kept walking, and they let him through. Like, what the? They would have stopped me, but like, who knows? I just have to like try it. So my goal is to try that and just say absolutely. It's that confidence. Yeah, it's the confidence that gets you in the places that you want to be. So you got to talk in that mirror. You got to do that Issa Rae mirror talk.
Exactly. Yeah. I always think back of to a poet that I love, Dominic Christina. She, in one of her talks, says like, doesn't matter if they don't want you at the table, you still pull up a chair and you make yourself a seat at the table. You make yourself a plate because you deserve to be there. And I love that saying, and I love that story. Thank you for sharing, Sasheen. I'm going to move on to announcements. We do have another amazing event coming up soon. It is I think it's the 4th installment in our career conversations sessions. So we did a few of them throughout the school year. We did Hispanic Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, Women's History Month. Next up is our Career Conversations AAPI Heritage Month. So this event will be an Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month celebration in person in the lobby of the MESA College of Engineering here at PSU. See the link in the chat for the registration page. We will be doing a tour of the College of Engineering, followed by a panel of AAPI professionals who will talk about their career journey and how their heritage has shaped who they are as individuals. You don't want to miss it. This event is free to attend, and light refreshments and food will be provided, and parking will be free. Finally, please fill out our feedback form and let us know how we did so that we can improve on future events. And also, if you have any suggestions for future topics or guest speakers, the link to both an English and Spanish version will be shared in the chat. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see you again. Thank you all.